Đảng viên có được định cư Mỹ hay không? Thì hôm nay văn phòng Khai Phú có sự hiện diện của cô Jennifer Hermansky, là một luật sư về di trú nổi tiếng của Hoa Kỳ từ văn phòng luật Greenberg Trowbridge. Và hôm nay chúng tôi muốn hỏi cô một cái câu hỏi mà rất nhiều nhà đầu tư Việt Nam hay là những anh chị mà đi định cư Hoa Kỳ đó thường hay hỏi là chúng tôi là đảng viên hoặc chúng tôi từng là đảng viên thì chúng tôi có được đi định cư Mỹ hay không? Jen, one common question we have from different people, investor or people who want to migrate to the US is that whether they can be admitted to the US because they are Communist Party member in Vietnam, right? We know that generally the party member will not be admitted, right? Maybe you can touch briefly on that, but what we really focus on is the exceptions or the waivers available for those members.
Great question. So yes, in order to get a green card to the US, either through EB-5 or any of our other categories for green cards, you have to be admissible to the US. And one ground to become inadmissible is having meaningful membership in the Communist Party. So it's not just that all membership disqualifies people from immigrating to the US. That's not the case. Much like everything else in our immigration law, everything is very specific to the applicant and their individual circumstances, and the facts of their case really matter. So when we have a client that tells us that they are a member of the Communist Party or they were a member of the Communist Party, we undergo an analysis with them to determine whether or not one of the exceptions will apply to them. So the first common question that we have, an exemption that we try to go for, is whether or not their membership in the party was actually meaningful. Right. And the consulate will do an analysis as to whether or not the investor actually believes in the teachings, the ways of the Communist Party membership. That's whether or not it is meaningful. So one of the common things that we focus on is what were the reasons behind joining the Communist Party? Is it because you were required to join the party in order to advance in your career? So for example, we know that sometimes a physician or a doctor or a university professor, other individuals who are trying to advance in an academic career, a scientific career, are required by their employer to actually join the party. And so that is a relevant fact to whether or not your membership in the party was actually meaningful, whether you were required by some other party to actually join versus whether or not you really wanted to join because you believe in the principles of the Communist Party. The second kind of analysis that we do with individuals is, did you really participate in the party? And a lot of times we hear from clients that they didn't really participate. They had to go to one conference a year because their employer required it. Go, yeah, exactly. So again, the focus is on whether or not you really wanted to do it or you feel as if you are forced to do it in order to be able to advance in your career. So that is very important. And also not holding any offices or other things within the party is very relevant to the analysis. So just being a normal party member, and that is quite common actually here in Vietnam, also in China for investors. And so that is a common analysis by the consulate. So that is whether or not you had a meaningful membership. If the consulate finds that your membership in the party was not meaningful, then you can continue to immigrate. No other waiver or analysis is required. So that's just a factual analysis that happens in every case by the consulate. If for some reason the consulate does find that membership in the party was meaningful for you, there is waiver available. And a waiver is an application that you make to the government, and you ask the government to waive that ground of inadmissibility. And so this is one area where planning is actually really important. So a waiver is available to someone where you have a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident spouse who's going to the United States. So where we have a family, we can actually plan. If somebody says, I have been a party member, I'm doing that for my job, and I'm worried about it, it's possible we could make your spouse the investor, and then your spouse is issued the visa to go to the United States and becomes a permanent resident. And when they do, they become your qualifying relative, where we can then go, and even if the consulate asks and finds that your party membership was meaningful, we can go back to the consulate and say, please waive this ground of inadmissibility because I have a qualifying relative spouse, and it's in the interest of the United States to allow our family to remain together. And generally, this is also very fact specific. They're just making sure that the individual is not a security risk, a national security threat to the United States.
Okay.
So again, an analysis of your job and any positions you might have held within the party.
Right. So it's not over when you're a party member.